Good morning, kiddos. Let's go ahead and learn 1.6a, okay? So this section is all about complementary and supplementary angles, okay? So complementary angles are angles that are added together, okay? So if we have two angles, we add them together. So if we have angle 1 plus angle 2, they add up to 90 degrees, okay? They add up to a right angle, okay? That's complementary. Supplementary angles are two angles, so I'll just use angle 1 and angle 2 again, and they add up to 180 degrees, okay? So complementary angles add up to 90 degrees, supplementary angles add up to 180. A way to remember this is that C comes before S in the alphabet, just like 90 comes before 180 if you're just counting, okay? Another way that you can think of is supplementary angles, it kind of like super angles, okay? And super angles, they're really big. The last new definition that we're going to talk about is called adjacent angles. So adjacent angles are angles that are right next to each other, okay? Being adjacent to something means you're right next to it, okay? So it is two angles that share a common vertex and a common side, but do not have any interior pieces together, okay? So I'll draw an example of what I mean, okay? So if we look at what we did last week, the angle bisectors, those are also adjacent angles, okay? So if I have angle A, B, D, and angle D, B, C, okay? Those are adjacent angles. This angle right here is adjacent to this angle. They are next to each other, but they do not share any middle pieces. Angle DBC has this piece, and angle ABD has this, okay? So these are next to each other, they are adjacent. Okay, so let's do some examples. Okay, we have a lot of angles here. So what are our questions? What are we gonna try to figure out, okay? So the first question says it wants to name a pair of adjacent complementary angles, okay? So that's using two new words. Adjacent means they're touching, but they're right next to each other, but they're not the same angle. And complementary means they add up to 90 degrees, okay? So we're looking for two angles right next to each other that add up to 90 degrees, okay? So let's look at the angles right next to each other. We have 124 plus 41, that's way over 90 degrees. This one and 56, well, this is already 90 degrees. Like we talked about, this box means that it's a right angle or 90 degrees. So this is too many. Let's add these two together. 56 plus 34, that gives us 90 degrees. Okay, so 56 plus 34, that gives us 90 degrees. So the way we're going to name it is that the two angles, the two adjacent complementary angles are LJM, side vertex side, so LJM, and MJN, side vertex side. So angle MJN. Okay? Number 2 says it wants us to find a pair of adjacent supplementary angles, okay? So we are going to look for two angles next to each other that add up to 180 degrees, okay? So let's use this 90 degrees right here, okay? Because we just found out that these two angles are 90 degrees if you add them together, making LJN, this angle right here, that makes this 90 degrees, okay? And it is right next to LJK, which we know is 90 degrees because of this box. 90 plus 90 gives us 180 degrees. So let's use those two. So we have angle LJK, side vertex side right here, and angle LJN, side vertex side right here. Okay, 90 plus 90, 180. The third question says, what are two non-adjacent, so these two are not going to be next to each other, complementary angles? Okay, so we want to find two angles that are not next to each other that add up to 90 degrees. Okay, so can't use these two, can't use these two, let's use this 41. Okay, let's see if you add 41 to any of these, that will give us 90, okay? So 41 plus 56, that will give us 97, that's too many. 41 plus 34, that'll give us 75, that's not enough. 41 plus 49, that would give us 90 degrees. And they're not next to each other, so this one's perfect, okay? So we have angle FGE, side, vertex, side, and angle NJP, side, vertex, side, okay? And our last question having to do with these angles, number 4, it says it wants us to find a pair of non-adjacent supplementary angles, okay? So we want something to add up to 180 degrees, and we want them not touching each other, okay? So we haven't used this 124, so let's see if that works with anything, okay? So let's add 124 to these angles to see if we get 180, okay? So 124 plus 90, that's gonna give us way too many. That's too much. That'll give us over 200 degrees. That's not 180, that's too much. Okay, so let's do 56, okay? So 6 plus 4 is 10. So 5 plus 2 plus that 10 would give us an 8, and then that 1 is left over. That's 180 degrees. And they are not next to each other, so we can use those. So we have angle FGH, side, vertex, side, and angle LJM, side, vertex, side. Okay, now that we're done playing hide and seek with some angles, let's go ahead and see how we can use this with actual algebraic problems. Okay, so for number 1, it says that we have some set of angles, that we have an angle 1 and an angle 2, okay? That's all we know about them. We know that angle 1 is 23 degrees, and we know that these two angles are complements of each other, or they are complementary angles, meaning that angle 1 and angle 2, when we add them together, give us 90 degrees, okay? So we're gonna set this up the same way that we did angle addition postulate, the same way that we did segment addition postulate. We're gonna have 3 steps, okay? So step 1, we have to set up. So we have angle 1 plus angle 2, and that is equal to 90 degrees, and we know that because they are complements. Okay, step 2, we have to substitute. We know from the problem that angle 1 is 23 degrees, so instead of writing angle 1, I'm going to write 23 degrees, plus angle 2 equals 90 degrees, okay? And then finally, step 3, we're gonna solve. We can solve this just like if angle 2 was a variable, like the letter x. Okay, since we are adding 23 once on each side of the equal sign, we have to subtract the 23 degrees once on each side of the equal sign. Plus 23 minus 23, those cancel, leaving us with just angle 2, or if you chose to use a variable, it would just leave us with the variable. And then 90 minus 22, or 23 would give us 67 degrees, okay? So angle 2 is 67 degrees. Let's do another one of those. So for number 2, we have 2 angles. We have angle 3 and angle 4. We know that angle 3 is equal to 46 degrees, and we know that they are complements of each other. So when we add them together, we would get 90 degrees again, because again, they are complements, okay? So I wrote down everything we know. Now let's set them up like the angle addition or segment addition postulate. Step 1, we gotta set up, okay? So we know that if we add them together, we get 90 degrees. It's an angle 4. It's equal to 90 degrees. Step 2, we can substitute in what we know. We know that angle 3 is really 46 degrees, plus angle 4 is equal to 90 degrees, okay? And now we're going to treat angle 4 as if it is a variable and solve it around that, okay? Since we are adding 46 once on each side of the equal sign, we have to subtract the 46 degrees once on each side of the equal sign. plus 46 minus 46, those cancel, leaving us with just that angle 4, or if you chose to use a variable, it would leave us with just the variable. And then 90 degrees minus 46 degrees will give us 44 degrees. So angle 4 is equal to 44. Number 3, we have angles 5 and angle 6. These are supplements of each other, so we know that if we were to add them together, we would get 180 degrees because this is our super angle. And then we also know that angle 5 is 78 degrees. Okay, so let's set this up just like angle or segment addition postulate. So step 1, we have to set up. We know that if we add these two together, we get 180 degrees. So we have angle 5 plus angle 6 is equal to 180 degrees. Step 2, we're going to substitute. What do we know? We know that angle 5 is 78 degrees. So we're going to write 78 degrees plus whatever angle 6 is equal to 180 because they are supplements. And then we're going to treat angle 6 like it's a variable. Since we're adding 78, we have to subtract 78 degrees once on each side of the equal sign. Plus 78 minus 78, those cancel. So we're just left with our angle 6 or our variable. And 180 minus 78 is going to give us 102 degrees. Number 4, we have angle 7 and angle 8. And we know that they are supplements, so that means that they add up to 180 degrees. Forgot to just say angle 7 and angle 8, so I'll write that underneath. And we know that angle 7 is 109 degrees, okay? So let's set this up. First step, we gotta set it up. So we have angle 7 plus angle 8 is equal to 180 because they are supplements, okay? Step 2, we plug in what we know. We know that angle 7 is 109 degrees plus angle 8 is equal to 180, okay? So now we treat angle 8 like just a variable, and we're going to solve it around that. Since we are adding 109 on one side, we have to subtract it from both sides. So we are going to subtract 109. These cancel, leaving us with just the measure of angle 8. And then 180 minus 109 leaves us with 71 degrees. Okay. On this problem, it gives us two angles and it tells us that they are complements of each other. Remember, complements means it adds up to 90 degrees, okay? So we're gonna set this up just like angle addition postulate so that we can find out what x is, okay? So step 1, we have to add the two angles together. So we have the measure of angle, and you can pick whichever one first, it really doesn't matter. I'm gonna pick U, V, W, side, vertex, side, okay? So the measure of angle UVW plus the measure of angle, and then we're gonna look at our other one that we didn't use. So mine is XYZ, side, vertex, side, XYZ, and we know that these are complements, so again, they add up to 90 degrees, okay? So step 2, we have to plug in what we know. We don't see degree measurements here, but we do see some yucky algebra pieces. So let's plug those in. Okay, so UVW is equal to x minus 10. Plus XYZ is 4x minus 10. And that is all equal to 90 degrees. Okay? So now on the left side of the equation, we're going to look for like terms to combine, okay? So I see two constant terms with no variables on them, and then I see two variable terms, okay? So we're gonna combine those two. We have 1x plus 4x, they're both positive, so we're just gonna add those together. This is step 3 where we solve. 1 plus 4 is 5, and the x just hangs on. And then our constant pieces, we have a negative 10 minus 10. Okay, since they're both negative, our answer is going to be negative. And remember, when we subtract negatives, it's like we're really adding, okay? So 10 minus 10, I owe you $10, I borrow 10 more, Now I owe you $20, and that is still equal to 90 degrees. Okay? So I see some subtractions. The opposite operation of subtraction is addition. We're going to add 20 once on each side of the equal sign. Minus 20 plus 20, those cancel, and we're left with 5x on this side. And then 90 plus 20 gives us 110 degrees. Okay, now I see some multiplication between our coefficient and our variable. So to undo multiplication, we are going to have to divide by our coefficient 5 once on each side of the equal sign. Okay, multiply 5, divide by 5, these cancel, just leaving us with a positive 1x that we don't have to write the 1 for. And 110 divided by 5 gives us 22. Okay, so x is equal to 22 degrees. And just for fun, let's go ahead and find the measure of these angles. So we're just going to have to plug in x to these two equations. Okay, so x minus 10, we know x is 22. So here it would be 22 minus 10, which would give us 12 degrees. Okay, so the measure of angle UVW is 12 degrees. Okay, I'm going to give that a little circle. Okay, and then over here, we're going to have to plug in the x, do some multiplication as well. So we have 4 times our x, which is 22, minus 10. 4 times 22 gives us 88 minus 10. 88 minus 10 is 78 degrees, okay? So the measure of our two angles are 12 degrees and 78 degrees. Okay, so let's do another one like that. We have two new angles with two yucky algebra pieces in them. So first let's set up. We want to figure out what these angles are. Okay, so you can start with either angle. I'm going to start with this big one up here. So we have the measure of angle, side, vertex, side, EFG, EFG, okay, plus the measure of angle, side, vertex, side, LMN, LMN. Okay, and the problem tells us that these are supplementary angles, or super angles, meaning that they add up to 180 degrees this time. Okay? So, step 2, we gotta plug in what we know. So let's plug in these yucky algebra pieces. EFG is equal to 3x minus 15. Okay? So we write down 3x minus 15 plus the measure of angle LMN is 2x minus 5. So let's write that into 2x minus 5. And again, that's equal to 180 degrees because they're supplementary angles. Now on the left side of the equation, let's go ahead and combine the like terms. I see two pieces that have a variable in it and two pieces that are constants. Okay? So two variable pieces, 3x and 2x, they're both positive, so we can just add those together. 3 plus 2 gives us 5, and that x just hangs on. And then here, if I owe you $15 and I borrow 5 more, it's like we're adding those together. I owe you $20, and that is still equal to 180 degrees. Okay? So I see some subtraction here. To get rid of the subtraction, we're going to have to add 20 once on each side of the equal sign. Minus 20 plus 20, those cancel, leaving us with just a 5x. And then 180 plus 20 gives us 200. Okay, the 5x, we're doing some multiplication between our coefficient and our variable. So we are going to divide once on each side of the equal sign by 5. Multiply by 5, divide by 5, those cancel, leaving us with just a positive 1x that we don't have to write the 1 to, and 200 divided by 5 leaves us with 40. So just for the fun of it, let's figure out what these angles are, okay? So we're gonna have to plug in what we know, our new x, into these two yucky algebraic pieces to figure out what the measure of the angles are, okay? So on this one, we have 3 times our x, which we just found out was 40 minus 15. 3 times 40 gives us 120 minus 15. That leaves us with 105 degrees, and I'm going to give that a circle. Down here, we have 2 times x minus 5, so we know our x is 40 minus 5. 2 times 40 gives us 80 minus 5. 80 minus 5, that's going to give us 75 degrees with its own circle.